Imagine walking deep into the Australian bush. No trails, no markers, just the hush of eucalyptus trees and the crunch of dry leaves underfoot. You push through a curtain of brush and stumble into a narrow sandstone crevice. That's when you see it. Carvings, hundreds of them, boats, jackals. Strange symbols you instantly recognize but can't quite believe. Hieroglyphs, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, in the middle of the Australian wilderness. What you've just discovered is a real place, a real mystery. And to this day, no one agrees on how or why it came to exist. Welcome to History Footnotes and Fiascos. Today's story is about a hidden wall of symbols, a supposed Egyptian prince, and one of the most hotly disputed sites in Australian history. This is the story of the Gosford Glyphs, also known as the Kariong Hieroglyphs, and the deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. Located in the shadows of Brisbane Water National Park, just outside the town of Gosford, the site looks unremarkable at first glance. A split in the sandstone, tucked behind bushland and walking trails. But as you step closer, the wall reveals its secret. Over 300 carvings etched in parallel lines along the rock face, in a style unmistakably Egyptian. The figures are crude but deliberate: pharaohs, boats, Anubis, strange animals, even cartouches bearing what appear to be royal names. And yet, we are 7,500 miles from the Nile. So how did these symbols get here? The first public record of the glyphs appeared in the 1970s. A surveyor named Alan Dash stumbled across them in 1975 while exploring the area. Intrigued by the carvings, he returned again and again. But something didn't add up. According to Dash, new glyphs were appearing between visits, freshly etched, as if someone was actively expanding the site. Still, Dash wasn't the first to see them. Local residents had whispered about strange carvings in the area for decades. Some claimed to have seen them in the 1930s. Others said they'd been known to bushwalkers since the end of World War I, but there's no solid proof of their existence before Dash brought them into the spotlight. As the story spread, speculation exploded. Were they a hoax? A prank left behind by soldiers? Or could they be proof that ancient Egyptians, navigators, engineers, builders of pyramids, reached the shores of Australia thousands of years before European colonization? And if so, what were they doing here? The carvings themselves are a cryptic puzzle. Some seem to form coherent phrases. Amateur translators claim they describe a journey by sea undertaken by two Egyptian princes, one of whom allegedly died and was buried in a cave at the site. The glyphs speak of danger, starvation, snakes, divine protection, death. A cartouche at the top of one wall appears to bear the name Khufu, the pharaoh credited with building the Great Pyramid. Another refers to a man named Nefer-ti-ru, possibly the deceased traveller whose story is supposedly carved into the stone. But things get stranger. The styles don't match. Some symbols are drawn from Egypt's Old Kingdom, others from far later dynasties. It's like finding medieval knights engraved next to Roman emperors. And then there's the execution. Some symbols are shallow, others deep. Some are rough, childlike. Others are surprisingly crisp and accurate. No one, mainstream scholars, amateur researchers, spiritual seekers, can seem to agree on what the carvings really say. But one thing is clear: whoever carved them had a purpose. And that purpose remains hidden in the stone. From the moment the glyphs became public knowledge, the battle lines were drawn. Mainstream archaeologists and Egyptologists quickly labelled them a hoax. Their reasoning? The symbols were too clean, too well preserved, too inconsistent. They argued the carvings showed little to no erosion, unlike the thousands of years old Aboriginal petroglyphs found nearby. And then there was the matter of language. Experts pointed out that the glyphs mixed several different eras of Egyptian writing, sometimes within the same line. Some symbols matched those from the Old Kingdom. Others were from the New Kingdom. A few didn't appear in any known Egyptian dictionary. To Egyptologists, this wasn't a mystery, it was a red flag. They claimed the glyphs had been copied badly from modern books. As one critic put it, they look like the work of someone who's read about Egypt but never actually studied it. But for every debunker, there's a believer. And they point to one simple question: if it's a hoax, then who did it and why? There are three dominant theories. The first, and most controversial, is that the glyphs are genuine, that ancient Egyptians, possibly during the reign of Khufu, made a voyage deep into the southern seas, that their ship crashed or was deliberately steered to the eastern coast of Australia, and that one of their royals, a man named Nefer-ti-ru, died here. Supporters cite the alleged translation carved into the wall. A great catastrophe struck. The snake bit twice. Death was swift. I, the son of the king, was buried here by my brother. We are far from home. They also point to prevailing Indian Ocean currents that could, in theory, carry a ship from East Africa to Australia's western or southern shores. Of course, no Egyptian artifacts have ever been recovered from the area. No tomb, no burial chamber, no tools, just the glyphs. Still, believers insist this is the smoking gun of ancient transoceanic contact, something mainstream history has long denied. Then there's the World War I soldier theory. This idea suggests that Australian servicemen stationed in Egypt during the First World War became fascinated with ancient Egyptian culture. When they returned home, haunted, changed, looking for meaning, they may have recreated what they saw, carving symbols into the stone as a spiritual ritual, a secret tribute, or perhaps just a distraction from war's horrors. This theory explains the general accuracy of some symbols and the uneven execution of others, but it raises a question of motive. Why would a group of soldiers walk into the bush and spend weeks carving hieroglyphs in a remote crevice? And why has no one ever claimed responsibility? Finally, there's the 1970s hoax theory, a favourite among skeptics. In this version, the carvings were made by a local amateur Egyptologist during the 1970s, possibly as part of a mystical experiment or alternative history project. The glyphs only entered public consciousness around that time, and according to early reports, new carvings were still appearing well after the site's discovery. If this theory is true, then the Gosford Glyphs aren't ancient, they're modern. A modern riddle. A secret that someone carved into the stone, hoping others would someday find and wonder. But here's the catch. No one has ever confessed. No one has claimed ownership, and whoever carved them did it in silence. Of course, in a story this strange, it was only a matter of time before the mystery grew weirder. The carvings alone are enough to spark debate. But for some visitors to the Gosford Glyphs, the mystery isn't just etched in stone, it lingers in the air. Paranormal investigators have long claimed the site rests on a ley line, an invisible pathway of earth energy believed by some to connect ancient sacred sites around the world. Visitors describe feeling a strange presence there, a low hum beneath the silence, sudden dizziness, headaches, and more than once an overwhelming sense of being watched. Some say the carvings radiate energy, especially under moonlight. There are even claims that the glyphs glow faintly in the dark, though no photographic evidence has ever confirmed it. Paranormal groups have brought EMF detectors and spirit boxes to the site. They report energy spikes, unexplained sounds, and bizarre static. Others claim their cameras and audio gear malfunction for no reason at all. But it doesn't stop there. The area around Kariong has quietly become a hotspot for UFO sightings. Lights in the sky, hovering objects, and strange sounds in the trees. Some locals even say the glyphs weren't carved at all, but rather burned into the stone by something not of this world. One particularly persistent legend tells of a hidden doorway in the rock, a portal, they say, or perhaps the sealed entrance to something ancient and buried, which brings us to the deepest layer of the mystery. Literally. According to fringe researchers and independent explorers, the glyphs are just the surface expression of something buried beneath the hill. A tomb, a chamber, an underground complex holding the remains of the Egyptian prince Nefer-ti-ru, the same one referenced in the glyphs. In the 1990s, a self-styled researcher claimed to have discovered a sealed stone opening near the site, hidden beneath vines and debris. He believed it was the entrance to a burial chamber, but before excavation could begin, park authorities intervened. To this day, no formal dig has ever been allowed, and the researchers' claims were quietly dismissed. Others have reported finding unusual stone seals and objects near the glyphs, items they believe were later confiscated or buried by government officials. The rumour? A deliberate effort to keep what's buried at Kariong buried. Officially, the New South Wales government classifies the Gosford Glyphs as modern graffiti. No archaeological value, no historical merit, no further investigation required. Over the years, the site has quietly endured periods of intentional neglect and at times even sabotage. In the early 2000s, portions of the glyphs were reportedly filled in with cement by national parks officials. The stated reason? Preventing vandalism and cultural contamination. But for many, this act raised a more unsettling question. If the glyphs are meaningless, why go to such lengths to erase them? Whispers of a cover-up persist. Some claim that any serious investigation would threaten the conventional timeline of human migration, and that acknowledging Egyptian presence in Australia would force a rewrite of global history. Others believe the suppression has less to do with ancient Egypt and more to do with land rights, because this is, at its core, sacred land. The site lies within the territory of indigenous Australian peoples, custodians of some of the world's oldest continuous cultural traditions. And many Aboriginal elders have spoken out against sensationalizing the glyphs. They say the carvings are not part of their Dreamtime stories, and that the true sacred sites nearby, rich in authentic Aboriginal rock art, are being ignored or trampled by curious tourists searching for pyramids and pharaohs. Some warn that the glyphs are not just false history, but a distraction, a misplaced obsession that drowns out the real, ancient voices of the land. Still, the glyphs remain, weathered, debated and enduring. Each year a quiet stream of modern pilgrims arrives, bushwalkers, spiritual seekers, conspiracy theorists, skeptics and wanderers who simply want to see the mystery for themselves. They hike through narrow forest paths until they find the crevice, step between the stone walls and confront the symbols face to face. Some leave offerings, coins, crystals, handwritten notes. Others bring tools, hoping to decipher the carvings or uncover what lies beneath. Most leave with more questions than answers, because whether the glyphs were carved by ancient explorers, grieving soldiers or modern mystics, they've become something else entirely. A message, a puzzle, a reminder that sometimes the strangest stories aren't found in history books, but hidden in stone, deep in the forest, waiting to be found. You've been watching History Footnotes and Fiascos, where we uncover the chilling, the curious and the nearly forgotten corners of the past. If you found this story intriguing, leaving a like or sharing your thoughts in the comments really helps the channel reach more curious minds. And it lets us know you'd like to see more stories like this. If you have a theory or a strange historical mystery you'd like us to dig into, don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, Subscribing and tapping the notification bell is a great way to support the channel and make sure you don't miss what's coming next, because the past is full of strange shadows and we're just getting started. Until next time, stay curious.